Shalomonomics. First of all, I have to give some credit to Ashley, who helped me clean up this title. I was struggling with various ways of saying this, but she looked at what I was trying to do and coached me into this new term called Shalomonomics, which is basically the economics of shalom. Jesus today, he's talking again at the temple, as he has been for us for the last several weeks, and continuing to talk about issues related to justice. And this whole notion of Shalomonomics that we are looking at today is focused on Jesus talking to the wealthy, helping them try to understand that they have been given much, and because they have been given much, much is expected of them. It's not a matter of simply hoarding what one has. I remember years ago, I knew a guy in Grand Rapids. You're going to hear me mention Grand Rapids maybe 3-4 times a year. And there's 3 or 4 different people that I'm referring to. Sometimes it will sound somewhat similar, but this is a different person than I may have referred to 6 or 8 weeks ago. And anyway, this guy I knew over about a 20-year period. And he was very, very wealthy. He was Dutch. He was Reformed. Big supporter of Calvin College and the like. And he took his faith very, very seriously. And what he told me was that he always had wanted to be a pastor. He thought being a pastor would be the greatest thing in the world. He loved the church, he loved the faith, he liked all the missions that support that. And he said, man, in my heart, I want to be a pastor. He said, but you know what I found out is earlier in my life, as I was just kind of moving through life, is that I had been given the gift of making money and doing good business and being rewarded. And he said, it's been that way. I've worked hard and stuff like that, but I've been blessed with great success, great employees, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I realized, he said, is that, my mission in this case is to give most of it away. And so he saw his mission as supporting the church, supporting all kinds of different charities, some related to the church, some more secular, community-wide services. But he started to understand that that was his mission in life. And Pete, he made, I would estimate, over about a 30-year window of whatever, he personally made between 5 and 10 million a year in today's money. Now, if he were alive, he'd be 102, but so to give you some perspective. But in any event, he would give away 50 to 70% of what he had, received in a given year. With his wife, they would figure things out. And he could have received much more money. He was very generous with his employees. He had about 150 employees. They were very well repaid and thought of him very, very well. And Pete was a guy, it was interesting because he never saw himself as particularly generous. He did say, though, to me that he understood to whom much is given, much is expected. And he also recognized, because of his success, even giving away 50 to 70% of such amount of money, he lived a very comfortable life. And he knew that. And he never really saw himself as particularly generous at all. Pretty humble guy. As a matter of fact, Pete and his wife, they lived in the house, the first house they purchased after the business started to do a little bit well. And it was a 2,000 square foot brick ranch, a really nice house on about 3/4 of an acre. And but you look at that and it's great house. Anybody would love to live in it, but compared to the wealth he had, he could have certainly done something more. And Pete, he drove the top of the line Chevy, the old Caprice Classic. It's a great car. I mean, I don't need anything more. He didn't belittle anyone who drove something else, but his perspective was such that he clearly took care of himself just fine, but recognized what his obligations were. And so he was this great example of Shalomonomics and understanding full well what today's lesson meant. And he referred to this lesson to me from time to time when we would visit, that it kind of guided him to some extent. And so we see his example and go back to the temple in Jesus' time, and we recognize that his ministry is nearing an end. He has been preaching to the powers that be that the world that they live in is filled with very poor and oppressed people, and they can do something about it because they are controlling that situation. The people, all the poor people, worked very hard, but we're only allowed to keep a little bit. And so Jesus is trying to encourage the powers that be that they have the ability to make a difference, that much has been given to them and much is expected. That's the pitch. Shalomonomics. And so here we are today, 2020, in the midst of what we're in the midst of. And we're invited to reflect on just what that means for us. How do we move forward in our faith and in our life in the midst of these challenging and uncertain times? How do we hear the message that Jesus delivered, and how do we process that uniquely in our own lives as we move forward in faith? These are challenging times, and the church has changed for a while. We are negotiating the uncertainty of the times, and we are continuing to find new ways to be the light and the hope and the hands and the feet of God. And sometimes we struggle with it, and sometimes things move forward nicely. But the one thing that I'm confident about, my friends, is that the St. John community is really positioned pretty well to move forward. We are gifted in a wide variety of ways. We have the opportunity to continue to reflect on our history, where we are today, and where we're going to head in the future. And we have an opportunity to really strengthen this ministry as it reaches out to the world in a distance-like way, but also prepares for a life after COVID. And these are truly, truly exciting times. So I pray that as we think about this thing is that we feel that sense of hope, that sense of trust, that sense of purpose that allows us to just let those baptism waters that Elise had yesterday wash over us in a new way every day, and see before us the marvel of the world, the sacredness of life, the opportunity we have to extend this ministry not only to us, but to others. And when we do, we will clearly have been able to hear the message taught by Jesus so many years ago. Amen.